The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all joining us here for another Wednesday evening to talk a little bit about sports, life, and a little bit of everything in between. We have a lot to talk about today. We have seasons getting ready to get started, a little bit of drama, and you know what? Even more drama as well, too. The sports world is absolutely filled with it. Is DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And you guys might notice that Kelsey's looking a little bit tired because he spent all last week in Disney walking, what was it, 9 miles a day? Maybe 10?
Yeah, something like that. We did the math. My cousin sent me his Apple Watch. As you guys tell, I don't wear an Apple Watch because I don't want to be told I need to get up and stand up and move anymore. That's just what I threw that away. I don't need to be told what to do, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it means. But no. We figured it out on the drive back. I was like, they were walking something like 12, 13 miles a day. I was only walking about 9, maybe 10 miles a day. Let's be honest. I definitely know how to pace myself when it comes down to that. And lots of fun was had. Lots of sun was had. As you can still see, I'm a little burnt. So a little rosy. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And lots of Dole Whip was eaten. And a Star Wars lightsaber was created.
You can't go down to Disney without a lightsaber too. You can't leave and not come back with like that as well too. The right to bear arms is still a necessary thing, even when it involves lightsabers.
Pretty much only involves lightsabers at this point in time is all I care about. That's the only one for me.
That's the primary one as well too. But during your time there in Florida, there is definitely no shortage of action going on in the sports world, and it continues today as well too. We got college basketball in its full form, like its full peak madness form, beyond even what we could have guessed in our wildest dreams. We got baseball getting ready. This opening day is coming up less than 24 hours from right now. We got some football drama. We got a lot to talk about today as well too. So you know what? I don't think we have a whole lot else to get for. I think it's ready to get rolling.
I think you're right. I mean, my brackets are busted. I don't know about you, so let's just get right into it.
They were mine were busted before I even got to finish the phrase bracket, so I kind of knew they were done right now as well. But that's going to take us into the tip off. The tip off, of course, brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports to get yourself $20 off your first order with SeatGeek. Get yourself front seat for all the action. And you know what? Speaking of action, March Madness has been no shortness of madness and action so far as well. So far we are now in the Final Four as we get ready as we record this now, and it's the Final Four that everybody predicted so far, right? As we got San Diego State, a 5 seed, taking on FAU, a 9 seed, and then we got the 5th seeded Miami Hurricanes taking on the 4th seeded UConn. And not gonna lie, if you would have told me any of these teams was making the Final Four, the only one I would have believed was UConn. All the other ones I'd have been like, okay, good one, guy, considering every year you pick the hot pick is pick a 12 seed to upset a 5 seed. So basketball decided to give everyone the middle finger this year and put 2 5 seeds in the Final Four, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what to do with these anymore. Like I really looked at these brackets. I thought it was a joke when you told me that FAU was gonna be in this, and then Miami. I had Miami getting upset by a 12 seed in the first round. Oh, and by the way, the only 5 seed I had advancing past the first round was San Diego State, but then that was where they stopped. I didn't expect to see them in the Final Four of all places. But yeah, UConn, you know, there's a system they say if you're a top 50 defensive team and a top 20 offensive team, that's where the winners usually come from. UConn actually qualifies under that. I think it's actually top 57 teams in defense because there's, you know, they have to be oddly specific like that to include all the teams, you know. But yeah, I think UConn is the only team that falls in that out of this category. So maybe there's something to be had for this, you know, this wild statistic, but I don't believe in it. At this point in time, it's just a flip of a coin. Like you could have told me that they decided this by a Twitter poll, and I'd believe you more than I watched the basketball games that actually happened to create this.
Considering these 4 teams, I don't even think I believe the Twitter poll. I'd say it was rigged, or they'd stop the count somewhere. Like there's some tomfoolery going on there. And honestly, when I look at this too, I want to say it's hard to make a prediction or make a guess or anything like that, but it's kind of weird considering these are all teams we had probably gone within the first few rounds. I mean, when I did my bracket, I think I had UConn making the Elite 8, but what they did to Gonzaga, oh my goodness, that what they've done throughout the tournament, their average margin of victory, I think, is like 15 points. They've been absolutely ridiculous as well. San Diego State with the one absolute destruction. I think they had that in the second round, if I'm not mistaken, as well, too. It looks like, yeah, against Furman. Every other game within like 5, 6, 7 points, though, as well, too. In fact, their second biggest margin of victory was against Alabama. Who would have thought, right? And then Miami, I don't know what to say. I would kind of with you. They were one I had Drake upsetting them early, but they not only got past Drake, they rolled Indiana, they kind of rolled Houston, and they survived Texas as well. So honestly, I don't even know what to think about a lot of this as well. Too, we got our first comment. You guys' head shapes are the complete opposite of each other. You know what? I thank you. I think, or damn you. I'm not sure. I think it's a compliment. Right?
I have a Fred Flintstone head, so take it for what it's worth. I guess that means you have a Barney Rubble. I don't know. We'll leave that alone.
You know,
that just made me giggle. So shout out to this guy for making me giggle today.
Touche paper punch. That's a good one. You know what? We learn something new every day for better and for worse. But recapping back to the Final Four too, if I had to make a prediction for it right now, I'm going to take UConn because I look at they're the highest seed left at 4, so I'm going to just stick with that. And what they've done to everybody else along the way is that kind of ridiculous as well too. So I'll take UConn if I have to pick from these Final Four, but it feels like an episode of the Bad Batch right now is what I'm watching right now from for you Star Wars fans that know. It's definitely not the Final Four I was anticipating.
Yeah, if you know, you know at this point in time. But no, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it's worth. Oh, here you go. This is his description of our head shapes.
Cool. I guess I got a bright idea. I guess I'll take it. I did call dibs on the light bulb.
All right, you can have light bulb. I'm gonna stick with whatever that is, whatever the raindrop is supposed to be. Raindrop, drop top. I'll stop right there.
Yeah, but, reel that one back in.
Yeah, I got distracted. I'm sorry. This whole head shape thing has got me going in a million miles a different way. But no, yeah, this Final Four, it's going to be interesting. FAU, I think, is going to be if you believe anything coming from the opposing team's head coaches, this is the toughest damn team anybody's ever played. So that's something to be said. Their defense is staunch. There's no doubt about that. But on the flip side of things, I mean, I want to say like UConn could be a great contender just because they're the favorite. So maybe if that's the case they're making. And then, Miami's sending 2 teams to the Final Four, both or to the Elite 8 in the men's and women's. And this team getting to the Final Four in the men's, like who would have thought that? But yeah, flip a coin, you probably have a better chance of me telling you who's going to win. But I'm going to say UConn anyways, just because at this point in time, why not?
We'll just stick with it. And going over to the women's bracket, this one makes a little bit more sense on paper as well, too. At least the people who have picked brackets for the women's, they probably are a little more comfortable with how this played out. You got number 1 South Carolina taking on number 2 Iowa. We got number 3 LSU taking on number 1 Virginia Tech. So it at least lines up with it makes a little bit more sense. There might have been some upsets along the way, but the final result isn't complete and utter chaos. And when I look at that one, as good as LSU and Virginia Tech is, I think whoever wins South Carolina, Iowa is going to walk away with the chip in that game as well. I feel like that's the pre-natty, if that makes sense.
Yes. You're telling me South Carolina, who, by the way, the odds-on favorite to win, and they've been a plus odd or a minus odds-on favorite to win this entire thing since game, 10 in the regular season. Going up against this Iowa team led by Caitlin Clark, who we'll talk about a lot later. But, I mean, like right now, you got to say the best player in the country again right now. I'd
just
say
won the award for it today, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like just won the award. It was, if I'm not mistaken, back-to-back seasons?
I believe so.
Yeah, so, it's insane how good she is. And it's kind of stupid to watch when you're watching her play because you're like, guys, the ball's going to one person. She wears 22. It's Caitlin Clark. Don't go anywhere else. Double, triple teamer. I don't know. It's one of those things like you can coach them as much as you want, but like players going to make plays, and she continues to make plays. But I definitely agree. It's going to be South Carolina, Iowa, whichever wins. But I'm going to put my money on Dawn Staley still because, like I just said, coaches know how to coach, and good coaches can coach great players into becoming outstanding. Whereas bad coaches tend to make great players look normal. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, South Carolina's to me, South Carolina wins the women's bracket.
That seems like the safe bet. I just don't, and if Iowa does get by them, I don't see Virginia Tech or LSU getting by them because I feel like that means Iowa's playing in a whole nother zone, which underrated. Iowa, both in men's and women's basketball, last handful of years, turned themselves into a bit of a low-key powerhouse. I mean, multiple players of the year. You look at Luka Garza, Megan Gustafson, now Caitlin Clark, both of the Murray twins. Like Iowa's kind of turned into a sneaky basketball powerhouse here these last couple of years. Who would have thought? Right in the middle of the cornfields, you see a little mini almost dynasty coming up. Just can't quite get the ring though.
Iowa's always been that team, like both men's and women's. They're just really good at basketball. It's not like they have a whole lot else to do in Kansas in the summer. It's like it's too windy, so they all go to the gym. It's like, what can I do in a gym? Well, You can play basketball, or you can play basketball, or you can play volleyball. Somehow, it just so happens most Midwest teams, including Iowa, are great at what two sports? Basketball and volleyball. So it just kind of works out that way.
And smash mouth football when it comes to running the ball. They just can't really throw the ball too much as well. So you got to get a little bit farther south.
It's too damn windy.
That's what we'll blame why they had such miserable offense in Iowa City. That's how we'll blame that as well too. That's
all I'm doing.
Just mediocre quarterback play, offensive play, and they'd probably be in contention for the Big Ten championship. But I digress there. But definitely some Final Fours we'll be keeping our eye on as well too. But keeping all my money to myself because any bets I made, it's not worked out so far. So I'm going to keep my money to myself on the Final
I've made my money back because of the no sweat bets off FanDuel. But thanks FanDuel for that. But yeah, that's all I've gotten.
I clicked on those. I opted in, but I haven't got those back. So I'm sitting.
They all come at the end of the whenever your last team is finally done. I still have one team remaining that I have a bet on, and that's UConn.
Good, go UConn, right? As well too. Help us out.
No, I'm okay with just getting my money back at this point in time. Just bring it all back to me. I'm okay with it.
You know what? That's fair. So now we're gonna take things from the hardwood, and we're gonna take things into, I guess, the Real Housewives is what we're going to call this one, with kind of the drama going on because the Lamar Jackson saga continues to have an ever evolving door. And honestly, it just keeps getting more and more weird as we now saw since last time we had a show, there was the talk about basically a business partner talking to teams for him as well too, with like the mobile gym situation. We see that he formally, not so formally over Twitter, told everyone he requested a trade. There's owners now speaking out, even the Falcons owner directly saying, well, we're worried about his injuries. And it just continues to get more weird and weird. I feel like we're going to be talking about this every day for quite a long time, the way this is going.
Yeah, you want me to make it even weirder for you?
Oh, I can't wait.
An hour ago, it was reported that the Ravens, in an attempt for a backup plan for Lamar, tried to sign Baker Mayfield. What? What? Like, at what point in time is that ever a good idea? Especially when you talk about the things that Baker said about Lamar, like those two guys don't get along. And don't forget, Baker's afraid of Lamar's mom. Like, we can't just let that go. But no, yeah, this is wild. It just, I don't get it anymore. Just if I'm Lamar, I'm just going to continue doing my thing. I'm not going to post anything on Twitter. I'm not going to post anything on Instagram. I'm not going to change a profile picture. I'm staying status quo from here until I get traded. Nobody hear none word from me. I'm not going to have to defend myself for these injury questions. I'm not going to have to do any of that stuff if I'm Lamar. Just shut up, stay in my house, play some Xbox, order some food off DoorDash, call it swell. Watch the Final Fours that are going to be absolutely insane. Watch opening day tomorrow. Like, take your pick of things to do. There's plenty, and it won't involve you getting interviewed by anybody. So just don't worry about it. I don't get it. If I'm Lamar, I just stay out of the. Was that? Yeah,
unless he wants to come join us on the podcast, and you're more than welcome to come by as well too. There's plenty of room.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like we'll pull up the blow up matches for you. Be warned, the dogs might enjoy your company though. So sorry.
I just maybe he join us like over just join us virtually, but yeah, that too.
Yeah, man. He can hang out. He can come make a new home in Cleveland and kick the current quarterback out of Cleveland. That'd be okay.
Well, speaking of the current quarterback, that seems to be part of the reason we're in this situation is the contract that he got. And whether Lamar's asking for something similar or not, it's kind of set a weird precedence how basically Jimmy Haslam and the Browns dumped so much money into that. And kind of brings me to the kind of part I wanted to talk about a little bit as well, too, because a lot of people say just give him the money. I get why it's hard to do that because guaranteed money, basically the owners have to have in cash right up front. That's why it's kind of hard to have $250 million just on standby in cash because you can't pay that in like what your net worth is, if that makes sense. Like very few owners can do that. Haslam just happens to be one of them because those pockets are real deep. We're basically comparing Billies to Billies at this point. Jerry Jones, if he wanted to do that, we know Jerry Jones has that money to do that. We look at some of the other owners, they got billions, but do they have $250 million for one player on standby they could just put into like escrow funds? Because I actually learned this today from people much smarter than me that for guaranteed NFL money, they have to put that into an escrow account so that way the owner can't later on be like, oh no, I can't pay you. My net worth is gone. So it's player protection. But right now it's finding a way to come back and spite Lamar, unfortunately. There are some teams like I'm looking at Arthur Blank in Atlanta. I'm going to keep circling back to them because you tried to sell Home Depot and the farm And yes, I'm using Home Depot. There's a reason Arthur Blank has deep pockets, and it's because everyone's favorite home improvement store, not named Lowe's. You have that kind of money. You tried to sell the farm for Deshaun Watson last year, knowing that he was going to miss 6 to 12 to a year as far as games go. He's actually older than Lamar, who, if I'm not mistaken, as well too. Played fewer NFL seasons even before the time off. And now you're saying that you're worried about the injury thing because he's missed, I think, 6 to 10 games in his career, something like that, over 5 years.
Guess how many Deshaun missed? Oh, that's right, 12 to 15.
Oh, that was
Wait, no, he's missed a whole season and a half at this point in time in his career.
Plus his rookie year, he tore the ACL about midway through, so he missed a few games there as well too. Like, it's not like, I'm just saying it's a weird way that Arthur Blank I'm directly looking at for that one. It's like, you just say you want to roll with Desmond Ridder, say like we just say that, or say you don't want to trade for him. Just don't make up the weird stuff. Don't say like you don't know how the trade's going to work, or you're not. Just don't lie to her face. It feels very disingenuous, I guess. Or just say we're going to see what Desmond Ridder has. If he sucks, there's supposed to be 7 first-round quarterbacks next year. We'll try our luck then. Just try that because you don't want to give up your picks in case. Because really, Atlanta still has some work to do. They got plenty of work to do building that team out as well. So I'm looking at some of the other teams that could use his services though, and I think it all just kind of depends how much guaranteed money you have to get. If they can get a Patrick Mahomes contract where it basically turns into guaranteed money every year, that'd be great. But at the same time, that's kind of where the agent part comes into play, is someone who could kind of split that middle ground, which I don't know what goes into it. I'm not an agent. I don't sit in those meetings. I just kind of I interpret what I hear from everyone else. So I'll kind of get your thoughts as well too. Do you think we see a Lamar trade sooner than later, or do you think it's going to be kickback or some DoorDash play, some Xbox? We're going to be waiting for a while.
I think if it doesn't come this week, I'd say by the end of this weekend. So really by April 1st, I'd say. If it doesn't come by then, we're going to be sitting back and kicking back and going into preseason time, OTAs, and that's probably when we're going to see him finally traded. Like if he holds out, I think that leaves the Ravens no choice. Like you don't want to go into the season with Tyler Huntley only if you're not going to get anything for Lamar. So they're gonna trade Lamar. I don't see them having a Deshaun-like holdout for a season. Hate making that comparison. But yeah, no, it's like I think you need to, and yeah, this whole guaranteed money situation. Lamar got screwed because of Deshaun and because of Patty and Josh Allen, because their contracts, better quarterbacks, same age ranges as Lamar, didn't get guarantees, and then Deshaun, worse quarterback than Lamar,
with baggage,
gets a guaranteed contract worth more. And it's like that really screwed up the market for Lamar. And it's why teams are like, oh, well, there's 2 cases where a better quarterback than you didn't get guaranteed money officially. Like I said, like you mentioned, Patty's becomes guaranteed midway through the season, basically.
There's roster bonus for March 1st. Here's $1 million. Like they have it structured very weirdly, and it's easy to restructure too. So like that's
and it's like very, very accomplishable goals. Like it's like dress for 2 games, I think is one of them.
Check.
Yeah. Like I think it's like throw 10 passes. Like, oh, okay. So the things I do in warm up, all right, got you. Like it really is stupid progressions for Patty's contract, but you're exactly right. Like, I mean, if he had an agent, which I hate to bring that in as the reason, but if you have an agent, that agent knows how to make those loopholes in there and knows how to make it a legal deal for the NFL to sign off on, and you get things like Patty gets. You get that easy to reach contract, or you get that easy to reach Josh Allen contract that becomes guaranteed very simply. Just don't get hurt, basically, is Josh Allen's contract writer. Like, if you get hurt, at least play a majority of the season and you get your full contract. That's in his writer. And so, yeah, I mean, it would help. It's definitely not the only reason he doesn't have a contract, but it definitely is one of probably the main ones that teams are like, well, what are we doing? You either want 250 guaranteed or nothing. Is that what you're telling us? And like, they don't really have an opportunity to negotiate, really.
Exactly.
Where there'd be a lot of conversation in the background if he had an agent. Like, Lamar could be actually just kicking back, chilling, ordering DoorDash, and his agent could be doing all the work. Now he's doing all the work, and then like he's eventually going to get fed up because he knows what he's worth as a player, and the team thinks they know what he's worth as the team. And then this is where like the agents usually get involved, who's the middleman who can play neutral, slightly player leaning, but they play mostly neutral. And unfortunately, Lamar doesn't have that, and so Lamar gets involved, and eventually you get tired of sitting there talking to somebody who's like, I don't want to pay you that much, and they're just gonna be like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Bye. Hangs up the phone, doesn't talk to him for 7 days. Like that's really what's gonna end up what ends up happening. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of bad situation. I respect players who can do it with no agent, but realistically, you do need an agent.
Absolutely. As well, I do kind of also want to mention on top of everything is we look at like the Deshaun contract as well. They restructure that this year, but with those guarantees, it's gonna be hard to restructure going down the line as well. To like his cap hit, if I saw, is gonna be basically $60 million for like not next year, but 3 years after that. And that's you can't really restructure with that's part of the thing with the guaranteed money is you can't really restructure that. When they restructured, it's to take. That's why you see front loaded contracts often. Then back end, it's not a whole lot of guaranteed money because then you switch it to signing bonus. That's what the Saints are doing with Derek Carr and what they've done for somehow 14 years while being in cap hell. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird math that doesn't make sense, but they find a way to do it. And
it's
with
that Bayou math.
That's fair. And unfortunately, it's hard to do that Bayou math with those.
Some of it goes missing in the Bayou, and you just don't try to find it because you're gonna lose an arm.
It ends up in your pocket somehow, but how it gets there, it somehow avoids the salary cap. It's strapped to an alligator's back and ends up in your backyard. However it happens.
What's this? I found $10 million in my toilet bowl cover. Oh no!
And it's vacuum.
I guess that's Taysom Hill's new contract. Here you go, Taysom.
There's a lot that goes into it, a lot that none of us really know as much as we'd like, but I can see some of the issue depending on the money. But at the same time, I'm looking at something's goofy. I imagine something. It's a very weird scenario. And honestly, this all falls back on the Ravens. As soon as Josh Allen got his contract, you should offered Lamar $1 million more and be like, what do you say? Yeah. That would have been good 2 years ago because that's a year before Deshaun got his. That's 2 years removed from MVP, a year removed. That's the offseason after you won his first playoff game and 2 off seasons from when he won MVP. And he was 23 years old, 24.
Yeah.
Like you sign him right there, you're good to go. This is not.
Yeah, and you have a hell of a deal. Like, injury or not, you still just made a hell of a deal for him. So,
and it would be an extension, so you'd still get this most recent. You get the one recent year. You wouldn't have to worry about the 5th year. You just get that 4th year, so you can sign people and work around it that way. Like this, all could have been avoided if you didn't try and get cute with your MVP quarterback. And unfortunately, now we're kind of in hell.
This goes back to Joe Flacco. Like they've been doing this to quarterbacks. I mean, I'd even go back all the way to who Bolger back in not even Bolger. Oh. Goodness, who was their quarterback in 2001 when they played the Giants?
That was Kerry Collins, I believe.
There you go. Since Kerry Collins was a Raven, they've been doing this to quarterbacks, where there's just like they get to the end of that contract and they're like, "We'll see how you performed this last year. We'll talk about it after the season," and then they just don't talk about it, and then it's like, "Oh no, the player is so bad," and then Kerry Collins goes on to New York afterwards. Like, come on.
I think it was Kerry Collins. Maybe it wasn't. Oh no, that was Trent Dilfer actually. Sorry, Kerry Collins was.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, there it is. Well, then Trent Dilfer's case. Then I retire. I'm Trent Dilfer. I'll go to ESPN where they'll pay me. You know.
They did it with Flacco, and then unfortunately had to pay the ultimate price for it. And right now, it looks like they're paying an even worse price if they have to let Lamar go. So something we will be keeping an eye on for worse, unfortunately. But
Baker Mayfield at quarterback.
Oh boy, that could have been something. But you know what? We won't get too far deep into that. But good, Baltimore, best of luck. We'll tell you that. Before we jump off topic, let's go. Just kind of want to get your quick prediction as well too. Gut feeling. We're gonna say Lamar gets. Do you think he gets traded? And if so, where do you think he gets traded to?
Yes, he gets traded to the Colts. I'm standing by that from our mock draft. I am standing by this. I said it during the mock draft. I am riding high on this one, especially after Irsay came out and said, I just don't like guaranteed contracts. Okay. Give him 300 non-guaranteed and he'll sign on the dotted line. I guarantee you.
They've paid a lot of money to quarterbacks over the years, making Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck both at separate times the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Granted, different set of circumstances, obviously, as well, too, not fully guaranteed, etc. But it's very possible. Due diligence. I can see it. I don't know if they want to give up that number 4 pick. Maybe they trade back, acquire a couple extra picks, and then do it. I don't know.
I do. You're gonna waste it on a quarterback that has to grow for 2-3 years. So at this point, you can waste it on a quarterback that has to grow for another year, and you still make a hell of a deal, and you don't have to sign him in 7 years.
Oh, yeah,
So,
I'm thinking that team kind of sucks, so they need all the picks they can get.
yeah.
So maybe they trade back and acquire picks because that team stinks. On paper, it really stinks. Lamar will mask a lot of it. Him and Jonathan Taylor will terrify people, but it still stinks. You still can't get rid of all. You can't Ricky Williams trade this one away.
At the very least, they'd score more points through 7 games than they scored all of last season.
At least that watching those two run on turf would be absolutely electric. At least a couple plays a game, you'd think, oh my God. And, the ability to just throw it straight in the air and have 2 6'3", 6'4" receivers on the outside. Guarantee you Lamar
Or
would
6'8" tight end.
Yeah, that'd be a fun matchup if they can make it happen. For me, I'm going to say yes, he does get traded. I'm going to say they send him to the NFC. I'm going to say the Lions make the move for him. I think they have the cap space. I think Jared Goff's involved in the trade too. I
hate everything about that.
Why is that? Why do you not like that?
Because the Lions don't need to get rid of Jared Goff. The Lions have the perfect Lions quarterback in Jared Goff.
But Lamar,
but that's just it. Like, okay. So this kind of goes to the old. There's something about the NFC North where there is a certain type of style quarterback for every team in the NFC North. You always have a gunslinger in Green Bay. Always. That's their best teams. Always have a gunslinger. You always have a run-first, game-managing quarterback in Chicago to be successful. You always have a very basic, just average Joe who can throw it, who can really just does his best job of handing it off and play action passing in Detroit. And Minnesota, honestly, you just got mid. That's your best quarterbacks in history have just been kind of average, run-of-the-mill quarterbacks who can throw a great deep ball, which Dante Culpepper, obviously Brett Favre. Then now you have Kirk can throw a great deep ball, but he's always hold mid. So, like, there's a certain type of style quarterback for every team, and then not a single one of them is Lamar.
The Lions haven't won a playoff game in 31 years. Maybe they need to try a new style of quarterback. And
I mean, maybe they do. But at this point in time, I mean, who am I to judge? The NFC North has their own opinions on how things work, so I'm not here to judge.
I'm just saying, you put him with Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh, I'd love it. I think he'd do fantastic. Just no.
You still have the draft picks. I'm saying that he's automatically a top 2 quarterback in the NFC as soon as no matter what team he goes to. It's him and Jalen Hurts at the top over everybody else. Who else in the NFC is really competing with him? With those two, Dak maybe.
Nah.
Dak.
No, stop it.
Yeah, you couldn't even say that.
Move along.
So I rest my case. Although a fun one, just for ish and giggles, I'm throw out there. I know they just signed Geno Smith, but imagine if you put Lamar Jackson with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, Noah Fant.
My brain exploded just now.
And those 2 tackles on the outside, those 2 young tackles that, I know that it's Geno's team, but I'm just imagining Lamar Jackson with DK out there somewhere. Good luck, everybody else.
Nah, I'm good. I don't want to see that. I don't want to watch that at all because that team would just be murderous. That'd be absolutely awful. And I'd have to root for the Seahawks for a moment. Like, that's just not fun.
I mean, you can reluctantly do it, I guess. But you know what?
I mean, the best case scenario for me is Dak gets traded for Lamar straight up.
You know what? Jerry Jones has those deep pockets. If they can find a way to make it work, he's one of them. I don't know how their cap situation will work. I don't know how they'll pay Micah Parsons, but you know what?
Who cares? Bye, Micah. We will just score the most amount of points in the NFL. Don't care. Don't need a defense. It's not like you guys play defense anyways. We got Trayvon Diggs over here giving up 3,000 yards, but getting 10 picks. So, you know what? Go back to that, Trayvon.
Hey, you guys, they'll figure it out there now. So I mean, there's defense out there.
Well,
now.
Exactly. There's the defense. We don't need it. The Dallas doesn't need anything else. They
got defense out there. They just threw. Really
Did they actually re-sign Malik finally?
Oh yeah, Malik was already re-signed. It was
thank
Chris
goodness.
that needed to re-sign.
Whew.
Like they're intact defense. Like they got a squad. They just had a bad tendency to throw bad picks or just not move the ball or let Zeke play center at bad times.
Oh, you know who is involved on all those plays? Dak.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You bring in Lamar, it's looking pretty good.
Bye,
so
Dak.
my point is, I think the Ravens are sending Lamar to the NFC, whether it's a team like a Seattle or a Dallas somehow with a blockbuster trade or Detroit. I think there's a lot. Should be the Commanders. They should look into it, but they've already ruled it out. But there's
Dan Snyder's too much of an idiot.
I'm just saying the NFC should really look into it as well too, because you're automatically a top 3 team when you look at the quarterback discrepancy as well. So just throwing it out there. But anyway, we could talk about Lamar for another hour if we wanted to, but we're going to go ahead and move on now to our main event. And our main event, of course, brought to you by our good friends over at Manscaped. Use code HILOSPORTS, get yourself 20% off at checkout as well. And for our main event now, we're going to go to the Diamond, and we're going to talk a little bit of baseball, seeing as our opening day is less than 24 hours away. got a full slate of games tomorrow too. It's not like some of the other sports opening days where you get 1 or 2 games. We basically got a full rack of games as well too. Just about everybody feels like they're playing as well. What we're going to do is we're going to do our division winner predictions, our wild card predictions, and we're going to give you a World Series prediction. So we're going to go for home runs here today, for lack of better words as well too.
And by the way, all 30 teams are playing tomorrow.
It is all 30? Okay, good.
There are 15 games starting at 1:05 Eastern time, ladies and gentlemen, and ending at 10:15 p.m. Eastern time. And lowly souls, though, who have to stay up for that late, guess who it is? That's right. It is your Cleveland Guardians taking on the Seattle Mariners in Seattle.
Well, that's a late one as well too. I mean,
so Cleveland fans aren't sleeping on Thursday night, is what I heard.
So what I'm hearing is we don't have a 6-pack for you. You don't have a 12-pack. We don't have a 24-pack. We got a full 30 rack for you tomorrow as well too. So definitely, baseball fans, it's going to be a long day and a long night tomorrow. So strap yourselves in. Unless you live in Seattle, then you'll be fine because it'll be over at like 8 o'clock there.
Yeah. It'll be 7 o'clock when the game starts. You'll get out just before the game is supposed to start for the rest of us.
Exactly. So buckle up, everybody. So it's gonna be quite a busy day tomorrow, and Friday might have a very strong work shortage as far as baseball fans across the league goes. They might have to call.
I do want to propose something to you before we go into our predictions. Well, this is actually going to be a prediction in itself. New pitch count delays. How many times will a batter have a strike called on them for this pitch count or pitch clock delay tomorrow in the opening day? Do you go over or under 10 times?
Over 100%.
Over, yeah.
Between 15 games, you're telling me that you're getting less than 1 per game. I'll take the over on that 1,000 times.
I'm going to take the under just because I think they might have figured it out finally in spring training. But I do like the idea of this being like a right at 10, 11 type of situation. So I figured I'd throw that one out there. So over under on pitch clock delays at 10.
I'll throw one more at you. What's the over under that? Let me rephrase it. Do you think it happens more than once in a single game? Like, do you think any of the games you see it twice?
That's tough because in some of these matchups, I do think it's a possibility. I look at the Angels, Athletics, 2 of the notoriously slowest playing teams, or the White Sox and Astros. And I look at those 2 and I'm like, that's probably where it's going to happen, if it's going to happen at all. So I'm going to say yes. I think if it happens I think it will happen twice in one game tomorrow.
And my other question for you real quick before we get into it, just since we're on the topic, do you think this will improve the game offensively, or do you think we're going to see a lot more better defense because they don't get to take their time and everything's coming a little quicker? Or do you think that makes the pitches a little more erratic and a little easier to crack out of the park?
All of the above are correct. I mean, realistically, all of the above are a possibility. It kind of depends on the team. Smart players are going to be ready at all times. They all immediately, once the pitch is thrown, you take your 3 steps back to your original position, get back to your set stance, and start walking in. And then, batters, if you don't get out of the box, they should be always ready. So really the big question is some of these pitchers. I look at Zach Greinke and some of these guys who like to kind of like play with this pitch clock. And I worry about them potentially kind of getting into their own heads and throwing some epheses for some home run pitches. So I think it will improve offensive abilities a little bit, but it won't be drastic. I think the stolen bases are going to be the thing that you see a lot of.
Absolutely as well too. And just a preference, I think it's going to help offense a decent amount. It's not going to turn games into like 9-7 games or nothing like that. But I just think as far as getting hits, even if they're not home runs cracked out of the park, I think some of those wild hits that might be like a ground out might turn into a single just because the control's a little bit off. So I do think offense is going to crank up just a little bit, even if it's not on the scoreboard. That's just preference. That's how some of my predictions are going to take place as well too. I think offense
just not against Max Scherzer. If you go against Max Scherzer, you are getting quick pitched every single time. Good luck.
And you will probably whiff pretty badly as well too. I think some of those pitchers, like you mentioned, are going to be like Giannis at the free throw line. Those two, they're going to get some, but like it's just going to. I don't want to say rattle them because that sounds terrible, but it's going to throw you off just enough.
Yeah, some of them are going to get in their head, but like Max Scherzer, that dude doesn't care. He has a pace and he sticks with it, and he is actually one of the faster pitchers, anyways. Before the pitch clock, and then based off this spring training, he is going to be the absolute fastest in the history of the game. You might see a pitch every 10 seconds at that point in time. Like he's going to take the minimum delay for everything, and he's going to have a pitch really just pumped down the plate every chance he gets.
As long as the catcher doesn't try and screw with him, that thing's gonna be firing almost automatic at that
point.
No,
he actually started calling his own plays on his on the little play. So they have the pitch sensor, and it's a little. You click a button, you click a series of buttons, and it calls a play. or calls the pitch out. Well, so normally the catcher wears that on the wrist. Not for Max Scherzer. No, he wore it on his glove, and it was literally telling the catcher what he's going to throw while he's walking back to the mound.
Good luck hitters on that one. You're gonna have to adjust on that one. No taking your time, no holding the hand out, spinning the bat a few times. You better get ready to go because Max he's already typed it in ahead of time. He's like, oh, I know I'm throwing on.
He threw the first pitch and he's already knows his next 3 pitches and he just already relayed them. So it's like a 2-minute drill for a quarterback. He's ready.
He's ready to go no huddle the entire game. So what those games, that's just what the MLB is looking for. They might try and clone Max Scherzer or something like that, make him a
first 2-hour game, or maybe even sub 2-hour game. That would be insane.
Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, we can go on and on about this all day. We'll definitely have to see how it's implemented once these games get started as well. So I'm really curious to have a watch, see if it's for better or for worse. We'll definitely have to wait and see. But we'll go and start into the predictions now. We won't delay it too much longer. We're going to start in the AL and we're going to work our way down as well. So I'll do my East, you do your East. We'll just go down that way as well too. We'll go back and forth. I'll start with the AL East. Not getting too crazy with that. I'm going to take the Yankees. Still think they're the best team. They bringing back Aaron Judge was a big thing. I just look at the roster top to bottom. I think they're the best team in the East. Not by a long margin, but I'm just going to stick with the Yankees for the AL East.
No, that's fair. I'm going actually maybe a little bit wild. I don't know. Depends on if you've watched baseball in the last 4 years or not, but I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. 2 out of the last 3 years they've won the East. I think they've done enough reloading here. They might have one of the best rotations in the game, and you add in what their offensive ability can be, and you don't score a lot of runs in Tampa Bay right now. It seems like so. Their pitching staff is excellent. So give me the Tampa Bay Rays winning the AL East.
Definitely. I think those two and the Blue Jays, I think, could be a pretty competitive trio at the top as well. Unfortunately for the Red Sox, not so much. They got some work to do like they got some work to do. But
you lost your offense and it's not good.
Yeah, it's bad. It's the
it still don't have a rotation.
It's the Hawkeyes without the defense, basically, at this point, too. Like, it's bad. Anyway, we'll go into the AL Central now. And for the Central, this one feels like it's a competitive race between a couple of teams at the top. But I'm going to say the Guardians repeat on this one. I would say they're back-to-back Central champions. I really like the roster. I like how they kept a lot of their talent as well, too. And I think, was his name Bell? That's it, Josh Bell, right?
Yeah, Josh Bell.
Yeah. I really like that signing as well, too. I think that's a perfect plug and play into their batting lineup as well. I think they're set to go. I don't know if this necessarily catapults them into a World Series contender, but I think as far as the Central goes, that feels like they're the team to beat for me as well. The Twins are really good, but I'm going to give the edge to the Guardians.
I like that. And I did have the Guardians as my pick up until yesterday when they shut down Tristan McKenzie for the first 9 weeks of the season. I think that difference in the first 9 weeks is going to be what ends up being the difference in the Central. And I actually have the White Sox taking over the Central. I know the Twins are a competitive team, obviously getting Carlos Correa back again after all his offseason drama. And they did look great last year. But when it came down to it, it was the Guardians and it was the White Sox in the stretch. Guardians getting 95 wins in the season. Nobody saw that coming. White Sox with 87, I believe. And so I see the White Sox and Guardians kind of flipping this year. So the White Sox take the Central.
That'll be definitely a very fun race to watch as well, too. And honestly, the rest of the AL Central, not so much as well, too. Once again,
Tigers. I'm sorry, you're just out there.
With all due respect, Now we'll go to the AL West, and for me, this one I just took the Houston Astros. I feel like they're head and shoulders in that division. Like, I think there are some good teams, and I'll talk a little bit about them in our wild card. I just feel like as far as the regular season goes and winning the division, I'm going to take Houston pretty comfortably for this one.
Yeah, I wanted to be like, this is going to be where I get an upset pick. No. It is for the third straight year and the sixth year out of the last 7. It will be the Houston Astros winning the AL West. It's just at this point in time, it's just kind of embarrassing. But I do think the Seattle Mariners can play a chance at spoiler there. They would have to take the entire season series from the Astros by a good 4 games for them to take it. But I do think if there's going to be any competitor there, it's really going to be the Mariners.
Absolutely as well. So I think that's definitely one to watch out. But that'll now take us to the AL wildcards, and I'll just run through all 3 of mine really quickly, and we'll go through 3 years. You mentioned the Mariners. I think they're going to be a wildcard team. I think they're going to be competitive with Houston, but I do think Houston's going to, I don't want to say run away with it, but I think they're going to separate probably towards like that back third half of the season or so, like post All-Star break in that area. I think Houston will start to separate. I got the Blue Jays getting in as well, too. I think they'll be just a little bit better than the Rays. I think they're going to be basically nip and tuck. Then for my last wild card is the surprise. I think the drought finally ends in Anaheim. I think the Angels, with so much firepower, so much star power, they finally figure out a way to get themselves in the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade. Shohei Ohtani's in a contract year. They find a way to propel themselves in there to hopefully re-sign him for what, $500 million coming up as well too. Like, speaking of lots of money, he's about to get
whatever Patty's contract is times 10.
Yeah, just like him and Mike Trout. I think this is year they finally break through. I know it requires a full team, but you can't have two of the top, what would you say, 3 or 4 players in the game.
Yeah, 2 of the top 10 easy. 2 of the top 10 players right now.
Easily. Yeah. So this year I think they break through in the playoffs. They don't win. They don't take the division, but I think they find their way in as one of the wild card teams.
I'm glad you have faith in the Angels. I don't.
It's very little faith. It's a fool's faith, but I'm holding out on it.
Hey, you might
strike the Athletics. So I mean, like, I'm running out of teams here. It's not gonna be the A's or the Rangers.
Fool's gold becomes regular gold eventually, right? That's the philosophy.
Yeah, like all water turns to wine eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so my wild card teams, I'm going Guardians. Speaking of water turning into wine, I'm going Yankees as well, getting in there, and I'm going to go Blue Jays. So 2 AL East and the Central team. I think we see the Guardians really, like I said, competitive all season. Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, I feel like is going to be a 3-horse race, and it might even come down to that last week of the season, really to determine the shakeup. Would not shock me in the least. I could also see it where the Blue Jays are just out of the race from the East, and they're just like, well, we're better than everybody else, so we're going to take the last wild card spot. Like, I could see that being the case as well. But yeah, I have the Guardians, Yankees, and Blue Jays as my wild card teams.
Absolutely. That should definitely a lot of really fun competitive races. I think the wild card race is going to be a lot of fun this year, especially if some of these teams separate in the division, kind of like we imagine Houston will do in a couple of the other ones. If they separate, those wild card races could be a whole lot of fun for sure. But we're now going to head over to the NL now. We're going to go with the NL East. And you know what? I know there's some talk about maybe we'd see a little bit of change in this one, but I'm going to stick with the excuse me. I'm going to stick with the Braves for the NL East. I just
had to choke that one out, didn't you?
Sorry, I had a little thing in my throat. But yeah, dude, I'm going to take the Braves for the NL East. As I kind of wanted to be clever and pick the Mets. I know they're kind of one of the hot teams a lot of people are looking at. The Phillies obviously have a lot of star power, but I'm just going to stick with the Braves. It feels like the safe bet at this point.
Yeah, I'm not going to change anything you said. It does choke me up a little bit to admit that I think the Braves are going to continue to dominate this division. It has been 5 out of 5 for the Braves in the last 5 seasons. So, yeah, going to make it 6 out of 6 this season. I don't think there's any question in my mind. Everybody's coming back healthy, which is a huge part for the Braves. And I think that's going to be really helpful to get them advanced. Obviously, losing Dansby in the offseason, going to hurt, but you could figure out a way around that if you're the Braves. Plus, I like the Phillies, but I don't think the Phillies are a win the East type of team. I think they're a pretty comfortable. Might make the playoffs, but not going to be winning the East type of situation.
Absolutely. I'm kind of in the same way with them. Same with the Mets, where I think they're right there, but I think as far as winning the division, I think it's going to be them out in front. And it's definitely not going to be the Nationals or the Marlins. As much as it'd be fun, no faith in the Nats. I'm sorry.
Really the Nationals are the basement dweller for me. I think that the Marlins could make the case early in the season to potentially be like, oh, I'm a puncher, I'm a puncher's chance type of a team. And then, like always happens with the Marlins, an injury or something comes about, major injury, probably Jazz Chisholm yet again, and there goes their season down the drain, and there goes my fantasy team down the drain.
Absolutely, as well too. So we'll see on them. We'll see, but I feel like we're on the same page with that one. So we'll now head to the NL Central, and for me, this division just kind of felt meh when I looked through it as well too. Like, I'm going with the Cardinals as the division winner. But that's mostly because I look at the Pirates, the Reds, and the Cubs, and I'm like, I don't have a whole lot of faith in any of you to really make that push. Maybe the Brewers, but I'm going to stick with the Cardinals as kind of like they basically are like the winner of the AFC South, but MLB style in this one is what I look at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm not even going to try to make a case for anybody else. The Brewers only other team that really has a chance, and it's really going to be determined on the health of Christian Yelich and Corbin. I just don't see there being enough firepower though in that team to stick with the Cardinals, especially when you consider Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and the entire fire slingers that are their pitching staff. I mean, each one can throw over 100 miles per hour at this point in time, except for Wainwright, which I don't even think he's playing anymore. So literally all of them can throw over 100 miles per hour now. So yeah, It's good luck playing the Cardinals this season. Everybody else.
Yeah, especially in that division, I think they're going to pick up a lot of wins that they should, and then I think they'll surprise some of those other teams. They might be an upset pick once it comes to playoff time with some of those wildcard teams from the other divisions, but as far as the division goes, I just see them running through that division comfortably as well. Maybe the Brewers can keep it close for a while, but I look for the Cardinals to pull away late. Now, the last one we'll look at is the last, but certainly not least, we're looking at the NL West, and I feel like this could be one of the better divisions in the league this year as well. I'm going to give this one to the Padres, but by a very, very close margin, because I do think the Dodgers as well as the Giants are going to be pretty competitive throughout the year as well, too. Not a lot of faith in the Rockies for me, and Diamondbacks I think will be competitive, but I don't think they'll be in that race for the division. So I'm going to take the Padres in a close race with the Dodgers and the Giants not far behind.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I like this division the most as probably the most competitive at the top three. I'd even throw the Diamondbacks in as being pretty competitive, but I do think you're going to find very quickly the cream rises to the top, and it's going to be Padres Dodgers conversations. We might see a record breaking season again where we have two teams with 100 wins in the same division like we did when the Giants won it a few years back, and the Dodgers had like 101 wins and the Giants had like 105, something like that. I think we might see the same situation. This time it's going to be Dodgers Padres. I actually have the Dodgers taking the NL West. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really competitive division.
Absolutely. I look forward to those battles for sure as well. I think that those will be very underrated ones. Next, we're going to skip ahead. We're not going to go through each breakdown. We're not going to go through each individual. We're going to fast forward ourselves to the World Series and who we have.
We're not going to give our wild cards?
Oh, yeah, we did skip the wild cards. My apologies. So, NL wild cards. I got a little ahead of myself too because you were last talking about the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are my first wild card team. So that's why I got a little ahead of myself. So yeah, we got the
that's fair.
First team Dodgers. Same reason as you. Them and the Padres, it feels like they're both guaranteed to get in there. It's just who gets in where. Next, I do think the Phillies will get in there. I think they'll find a way to pull away late. They got a little bit too much star power as well. And they had a heck of a run last year. I think they got a little bit better this year as well, too. So I'll take the Phillies as a wild card team. Then for the last one, I'm going to take the Mets. I know I mentioned them as kind of competitive, but probably not making the division. But I do think they'll find a way to hold on to that last wild card spot. Mostly because nobody else stood out. I think maybe the Giants and the Mets will be competitive, but I gave the slight edge to the Mets because they don't have to play the Padres and the Dodgers in their division.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So we have all the same 6 teams. I have the Padres, Mets, and Phillies as my wild card. Our biggest difference is the West winner. I go Dodgers, you go Padres. But yeah, I have the Mets and Phillies rounding out the wild card with the Padres. So I mean, all the same reasons. It's really hard in the NL not to pick these teams because it's like in 2 of the 3 divisions, it's like they're very obviously the best teams. And then you have like the second tier of those divisions where you have the Phillies and Mets sitting out in the East. And then in the West, you have like, okay, Padres, Dodgers are probably the 2 best teams in the NL on paper. And you're like, all right, well, who's going to be basically who's going to be the one that box first is going to be the team that loses the West, and then the other team gets the number 1 wild card. That's kind of how I figure it out. So
it just feels like it's like 1A and 1B fighting each other the whole time. It's just which spot are you going to land in, basically.
And then I'm going to be completely wrong, and the Diamondbacks and the Marlins and the Pirates are going to win these divisions.
Whoa. You had a case until you said Pirates. Everything else is good, but then you threw out the Pirates. And
that's just how my luck has been this year. So I'm just going to say it now. So that way it's like it works against itself, and then it's actually what I picked.
So what we'll do is we'll pick all 30 teams. So in theory, you have to be right somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But now that we got through those, we're going to skip ahead now to our World Series predictions as well, to our AL champs and our NL champs. For the AL, I'm going to have fun with this one. I know I talked about them finally breaking the drought. I'm going to say the Angels not only end the drought, I think they go on a little bit of a run here as well. I think I mentioned earlier, I think offense is going to be cranked up a little bit this year, and I think they're going to find a way. It's going to be a little shaky. I think they're going to have to get some favorable matches, but I think they can make a little bit of a run. From the NL, I'm going with the Padres. I think Tatis is coming back is going to help. I like Juan Soto. I like Machado. Their pitching's not quite as good as it was last year, I think, but I think it's still more than adequate when you have 3 nuclear warheads at bat like they do. So I'm going to say we have an Angels, Padres. Unfortunately, California loves ringing throughout the entire World Series. So that's who I'll have as the World Series. With the World Series champs, I'm going to go with the Padres. The Angels have a run, but it ends viciously. I have the Padres taking the World Series.
Wow, that ugly brown and yellow team gets the World Series. All right.
Those uniforms may be hideous, but the players got game to go with it as well. It's like those old Steelers Bumblbees. It's hideous, but they still know how to play.
Tony Gwynn, rest his soul, is smiling all the way down watching the Padres win a World Series. That's what's happening. But yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. I respect that choice. This is for me. I'm going to go a little crazy. I'm going Cleveland Guardians. No, I'm just kidding. It's not going to be the Cleveland Guardians season. Let's not kid ourselves. I do have them, however, getting to the AL Championship Series. Ladies and gentlemen, I will spoil that alert. But unfortunately, the team they go against is that dreaded team from Texas, the Houston Astros. Yet again, with their trash can banging, tattoo covering up Band-Aid selves, the Astros are going to go to the World Series, and they'll be facing, surprise, surprise to absolutely nobody, the Phillies. A rematch last year. And I'm going to have actually the reverse situation happen where the Astros lose and the Phillies are going to take home the World Series trophy. And Bryce Harper finally gets his World Series trophy to celebrate and rock on with again. And Trey Turner and the rest of his friends there in Philly. As long as JT Realmuto does not get kicked out of any more games for showing up umpires behind the plate again.
That's a big if right there. But I do think the addition of US of Trey after his performance in the World Baseball Classic, I think that's going to be big for the Phillies. And I think I actually had them getting into that NL Championship Series as well against the Padres. I just gave the slight edge to the Padres. But I do think the Phillies will be maybe slower in the regular season, but I think the playoffs come around. Everyone's going to look in the back. Oh, damn, I'm not too comfortable playing them necessarily. I think they're
first of all, you're never comfortable playing in Philly ever. And you're not comfortable facing that rotation or facing that lineup either. Like, I'm sorry, but from 1 through 8, I'm afraid of every single person. And number 9 now, I don't even know who they're going to throw in as a DH. So you might be afraid of that DH too, depending on what series, like where they're at, or whether Bryce is the DH or the out in the outfield. If he's a DH spot, good luck 1 through 9.
They're going to be a tough out for everybody as well. I think it's going to be, if they lose, it's going to be in like a 7-game series. I don't think they'll go quietly or like a full 5. Like they're definitely not getting swept. I don't think it'll be like a gentleman sweep either. They're going to bring hell to everybody. So just a quick recap for our World Series predictions. I got the Angels taking on the Padres, with the Padres being the World Series champions. You got the Houston Astros, trash can banging selves, taking on the Philadelphia Phillies, a rematch, but with an inverse, as the Phillies will take the World Series championship this year. Do you got an MVP prediction for us?
I didn't, but I will. Shohei Ohtani in the AL, in the NL.
Oh, sorry, I meant.
You mean World Series MVP?
Yeah.
Oh, too easy. Bryce Harper. Actually, no, I'm kidding. Trey Turner. It's gonna be Trey Turner.
That's a good one. That's a good one. For mine, I'm gonna go with Juan Soto. I think Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis will make a strong case, but I'm gonna give it to Juan Soto by the skin of his teeth, basically.
By the same skin of the shot that Fernando Tatis took last year.
Not that thin, but that's a different one. But anyway, that's what we have for our World Series predictions. Let us know in the comments where we're right, where we're wrong, where we're stupid. And if you call us stupid and it ends up being right, please come back to say, you know what, touche, guys. And if it was terribly wrong, you call us out on it now. You can gloat later.
Please come back to say I told you so, because I will be like, congratulations, you told me so. You earned nothing.
I would say you were right. Congratulations. A tip of the proverbial cap to you, good friend. Not even going to put on a real cap.
A single golf clap.
There it is, pre in advance, so you're not getting it later. So enjoy it now. But that'll do it for our main event, and that's now going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show. That is Crunch Time, brought to you by our good friends over at Outlier. Use outlier.bet/hilo sports. Sign up, free 7-day trial. Bet smarter, not harder. Find some odds, trends, everything you need to put down the best bets and win yourself some money back. And for Crunch Time, I'm going to keep mine kind of short and sweet. I'm just going to have fun with this one. We talked about Iowa earlier, how they're making a little bit of a run for the championship here, led by Caitlin Clark, coming off a 40-point triple-double, if I'm not mistaken, to propel her team. I think she's making a very strong case as one of the GOATs for women's basketball all time as well. Putting her in the case with the Candace Parkers, the Maya Moores, and those of that nature as well. And to add to it, she's box office to go with it. If you look at the Final Four tickets, the men's game, the cheapest you'll find is about $70 to $80. The cheapest tickets for the women's Final Four is like $260. The Caitlin Clark effect at its finest right now. She's doing things no one has ever seen before. She comes back and plays again next year. She'll probably be the Naismith winner again. And she's doing it at Iowa. Not like UConn, not the South Carolinas, not the Tennessees with Pat Summit, like the ones where we saw all the other previous women's basketball. She's doing it at Iowa. She propelled the Cornfield Hawkeyes all the way up to a Final Four like this. And I know we talked about earlier, they've slowly kind of risen to the top a little bit here the last couple of years. She is a big factor in that as well. So Caitlin Clark, I think right now she's cementing her case as maybe the women's college basketball Mount Rushmore, maybe even climbing ahead of a lot of previous big names as well. So keep an eye on Caitlin Clark, especially if they win the Natty this year. I think she stamps herself right there at the top with the best of them. She's definitely already pretty much on that Mount Rushmore for women's college basketball.
All right. You know what? I respect it. I do think Caitlin Clark has been an absolute stud lately. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's kind of like I said, it's kind of stupid watching her play, just knowing she's going to get the ball, knowing she's going to shoot a stupid three, and knowing it's going to go in.
It's like watching Larry Bird play. It makes no. And she'll talk. And if you say something dumb, she will call you out on it and say, "You're down by 15. Shut up." Like they had the soundbite of her saying, "Like
right?
it's Lady Larry Bird."
Hey, honestly, it's like, okay, I'm going to take it a different step. I'm going to say it's Dwayne Wade. We're watching Dwayne Wade play, just a 3-point shooting Dwayne Wade. If Dwayne Wade was shooting threes, because he had the same type of technique where it's just like he'll take one dribble, jab step past you, you'll go flying by, he'll take that step back and be like, "Oh, I'm going to pull this," and then it just goes in. And it's the silliest looking motion because Dwayne Wade had that weird little half lean back, lean to the left shot that was like a crooked arm, and it's like, Dwayne, how are you making that? Caitlin, how are you making that? Like, it doesn't make sense. And yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, she has a lot of Steph Curry in her too, where she's just out there having fun. So yeah, it is a lot of fun watching Caitlin Clark right now, and I can't wait to see her in the WNBA. Honestly,
absolutely. And on top of that, she's giving you so many assists to go with it too. It's not just bombs away. I mean, she's averaging like 6, 7, 8 assists, something like that, and just had 10 in the last game as well. So she gives
multiple
you
triple doubles this season.
Yeah, like she gives you buckets, she gives you dimes, she gives you boards, she gives you a little bit of everything you could want as well. So I think if she's not on that Mount Rushmore for women's college basketball, boy, is she close. So there's a fifth head on there. There's no doubt it's her. And I think that especially if she goes on a run these next 2 games, plug and play her in the top 4. Maybe even number 1 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, really, realistically, I could see it. But I'm glad you actually mentioned Pat Summitt because while you taking Caitlin Clark for baby goat here, I'm going to talk about Women's Day. Women's History Month, obviously, is still March. It is still March, ladies and gentlemen, as much as this drag on it feels like. But it's been a great month for women's history. We've had a lot to learn from women around really all types of history. And you mentioned her. You mentioned my pick for today's Women's History Month. That is the great one, Pat Summitt. If you guys don't know about Pat Summitt, she is the all-time winningest, was the all-time winningest college basketball coach at 1,098 career wins when she retired. Served as the head coach of Tennessee, and if you guys don't know, they have a special jersey style for Pat Summitt. It is the Summit Orange, if you will, that they call it. She's also a silver medalist in 1976 and a 1984 coaching gold medalist during the Olympics. She's won 8 Division I basketball championships in her time coaching Tennessee. She coached some of the great ones all throughout her career. So she has been a fantastic coach. She retired from coaching due to a diagnosis of early onset Alzheimer's disease, unfortunately, at the age of 59. So we did not get to see her coaching career last as long as probably it should have. She was inducted in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 1999 as a member of its inaugural class. And she was also named the Naismith Basketball Coach of the Century in 2000. But this keeps going. In 2009, Sporting News placed her at number 11 on the list of all-time 50 greatest coaches. That's men's or women's of all time. She is the only women's coach or only woman on that list. In 2012, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama and received the Arthur Ashe Courage Award at the 2012 ESPY Awards as well. And in 2013, she was inducted into the FIBA, that is the Federation of Basketball International Hall of Fame as well. So Pat Summitt, we do celebrate her during Women's History Month. And as the end of Women's History Month, no fitting and then somebody who knew how to close out games as a coach and really as a player too. So yeah, great. One of the greatest that ever did it. And it was unfortunate we didn't get to see her entire coaching career pan out, but at 59, she still goes down as one of the greatest to ever do it. And, it was impressive to watch for sure.
The OG when it comes to women's basketball coaching as well. So you can't have the first chapter of the history book should be Pat Summitt as well too when it comes to women's college basketball, as good as it gets. So
followed by Lisa Leslie, who we did do already.
Exactly as well. So a great way to round out March with the March Women's History Month as well too. That's going to do it for us today here on the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all joining us. We will see you all again next week.